There was a time when your voice meant nothing to the world, when your words would drift into the air and dissolve like smoke, when you'd speak and they'd nod politely, but nothing would change, nothing would move, nothing would transform. That time is over. Look around you. The greatest fortunes, the most profound influences, the deepest impacts in human history have all belonged to those who mastered one fundamental skill: the ability to speak in a way that people cannot ignore. It's not volume. It's not aggression. It's not manipulation. It's something far more powerful. Something Dale Carnegie understood when the rest of the world was still learning to listen. The man who can communicate his ideas stands alone against the noise of 1,000 voices. The difference between obscurity and legacy isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't privilege. It's the ability to speak with such clarity and conviction that the world has no choice but to pay attention. What you're about to discover is the secret Carnegie protected. Not through silence, but through simplicity so profound that most miss it entirely. The secret hiding in plain sight that separates those who merely talk from those who transform reality with their words. The unseen barrier. You felt it before, that invisible wall between what burns inside your mind and what reaches another's heart. You have ideas, brilliant, world-changing ideas, but they remain trapped behind a barrier that seems impossible to cross. Your colleagues listen, but don't hear. Your family nods, but doesn't change. Your audience receives your words, but remains unmoved. Something is missing in the transmission. Something vital is being lost in translation. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right." What he didn't say is that the difference between those two realities often comes down to how you communicate that belief to others and to yourself. This invisible barrier has kept millions in mediocrity. People with solutions that could heal, ideas that could transform, visions that could inspire. All trapped behind the inability to transfer what exists in their minds into the minds of others. Carnegie knew something that took science decades to confirm. The human brain processes emotional conviction before logical argument. Before your words ever reach the analytical mind, they must first pass through the emotional filter that decides what deserves attention and what can be ignored. The fundamental shift, the difference between being heard and being ignored, begins with a fundamental shift in how you view communication itself. Most see speaking as an act of transmission, sending information from one mind to another. But the masters, the ones who changed history with their words, Lincoln at Gettysburg, King on the steps at the Lincoln Memorial, Jobs introducing technology that would transform civilization. They understood communication is not transmission. It's transformation. You don't speak to inform. You speak to transform. When Carnegie taught business leaders how to influence others, he didn't give them scripts or clever phrases. He gave them something far more valuable: the understanding that people aren't moved by what you say. They're moved by how you make them feel about themselves. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. This isn't manipulation. It's the opposite. It's radical authenticity that recognizes a profound truth. Words that change lives come from those who speak not to be admired, but to serve the listener. The moment your speaking becomes about their transformation, rather than your performance, everything changes. The invisible architecture. There's an architecture to words that cannot be ignored, and it begins in a place most never look: the silence before you speak. In the space between thoughts, in the moments before words form, there exists a quality of presence that communicates more than language ever could. Carnegie knew this. Before technique, before strategy, before the first word, is uttered, the foundation is laid in how completely you inhabit the present moment. The greatest speakers in history share this quality. Time seems to slow when they speak. The world narrows to just their voice, their presence. This isn't charisma in the conventional sense. It's something more fundamental. The complete alignment of thought, emotion, and expression. When Eleanor Roosevelt commanded rooms filled with powerful men in an era when women were expected to be silent, she didn't do it through volume or aggression. She did it through this alignment, this congruence between what she believed, what she felt, and what she expressed. You feel it immediately when someone speaks from this place. Their words carry weight, not because of clever construction, but because they emerge from the same source as their actions, their beliefs, their very being. This is the first element of the invisible architecture. Presence before presentation, conviction before persuasion, being before doing. The earned right to be heard. To be interesting, be interested. Carnegie's words cut through decades of communication theory to expose a truth so simple it's revolutionary. The right to be heard isn't granted by your title, your expertise, or your intentions. It's earned through the quality of your attention. Consider this. In your last 5 conversations, how many words did you speak compared to how many you listened to? How often did you wait for your turn to talk, rather than truly absorbing what was being said? How frequently did you formulate your response while the other person was still speaking? The masters of influence understand something counterintuitive. Your power to speak in a way that cannot be ignored is directly proportional to how well you listen. Abraham Lincoln, perhaps the greatest communicator to ever hold the American presidency, was known not for his speeches alone, but for his legendary ability to listen with complete presence. Before crafting the words that would heal a divided nation, he spent countless hours absorbing the perspectives of those who disagreed with him most vehemently. This quality, this earned right, comes not from technique, but from genuine curiosity. Not the performance of interest, but the authentic desire to understand before being understood. When you master this, something magical happens. People don't just hear your words. They feel your understanding. They sense, at a level beyond, conscious awareness that you've done the work to earn their attention, that you've taken the time to enter their world before asking them to enter yours. The emotional transfer. Here is what separates forgettable speakers from those who change the world. The ability to transfer emotion, not just information. Maya Angelou captured this perfectly. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This is where most communication fails. Facts without feeling, data without meaning, words without the emotional current that makes them memorable. Carnegie recognized that humans are emotional creatures who occasionally think, not thinking, creatures who occasionally feel. The brain processes emotional signals faster and more, deeply, than logical ones. This isn't a weakness to be overcome. It's a fundamental truth to be leveraged. When Churchill rallied a nation facing annihilation, he didn't rely on statistical probabilities of victory. He transferred courage and determination through words that carried emotional electricity. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. This emotional transfer doesn't require grandiose language or theatrical delivery. Often it's conveyed through the simplest words spoken with authentic feeling. A parent's, "I believe in you." A leader's, "I take responsibility." A friend's, "I understand." The secret is congruence. Your emotions must align with your words. The body communicates truth or betrays deception before the conscious mind can intervene. Your micro-expressions, tone variations, and subtle gestures reveal what you truly believe about what you're saying. This is why Carnegie emphasized being genuinely interested in others, not as technique, but because authentic emotional investment is impossible to fake consistently and impossible to ignore when genuine. The power of concrete imagery. The mind doesn't think in abstractions. It thinks in images, in sensations, in specific concrete experiences. When Jesus wanted to explain compassion, he didn't offer a definition. He told the story of a Samaritan stopping to help a wounded stranger. When Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to share his vision of the future, he didn't speak in generalities. He painted the picture of children of different races holding hands. Carnegie understood this fundamental truth about human cognition. The words that cannot be ignored are those that create images so vivid they become real in the mind of the listener. Arouse in the other person an eager want. This core Carnegie principle works because it operates on this level of concrete imagery, not abstract benefits, but specific sensory experiences the listener can almost touch, taste, see. Thomas Edison didn't sell light bulbs by discussing the technical innovations of incandescent technology. He showed people how their evenings would transform, how their children could read after sunset, how their homes would feel safer and more alive. The great communicators are painters who use words as their brush, the listener's mind as their canvas. They understand that the path to being unforgettable runs through the image-making machinery of the human brain. When you speak, are you offering concepts, or are you creating experiences? Are you transmitting information, or are you building worlds in the minds of those who listen? The bridge of relevance. Even the most emotionally powerful, image-rich, communication will be ignored if it fails to cross what Carnegie understood as the bridge of relevance. Everyone listening to you is silently asking one question: why should this matter to me? This isn't selfishness, it's the brain's efficiency, mechanism at work. With thousands of messages competing for attention every day, the mind must filter, ruthlessly. And the primary filter is relevance to survival, growth, and fulfillment. Dale Carnegie didn't discover this principle. He simply articulated what the most influential communicators have always known intuitively. The message that cannot be ignored is the one that connects directly to what the listener already cares about most deeply. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, he didn't begin with storage capacity or technical specifications. He started with 1,000 songs in your pocket, connecting immediately to what music lovers actually cared about. This bridge must be built early. In the first moments of communication, you must answer the unspoken question in your listener's mind. How does this serve what matters to me? Not through manipulation, but through genuine understanding of their needs, their dreams, their pains, and their aspirations. This is why Carnegie placed such emphasis on seeing through the eyes of others, not as a technique, but as the foundation of all meaningful connection. The courage to be simple. Make the complex simple, not the simple complex. These words, echoing Carnegie's philosophy, reveal another dimension of communication that cannot be ignored: the courage to be simple. Complexity often masks insecurity. The academic who hides behind jargon, the executive who obscures meaning. In corporate language, the speaker who believes elaborate words signal intelligence, but those who truly master their subject and truly respect their audience find the courage to be simple. Einstein explained relativity with trains and clocks. Warren Buffett explains complex investments in terms a child could understand. Fred Rogers explained difficult emotions to children with such clarity that adults found themselves learning alongside them. This simplicity requires tremendous confidence. It means distilling complex ideas to their essence without losing their power. It means trusting that clarity is more impressive than complexity. It means respecting your audience enough to make your message accessible. Carnegie knew that ideas that change the world are those that can be understood, remembered, and shared, not dumbed down, but clarified, not simplified at the expense of depth, but expressed with such crystalline clarity that the depth becomes accessible to all. The rhythm of persuasion. Have you ever noticed how the most compelling speakers seem to create a rhythm, an almost musical quality that makes their words impossible to ignore? This isn't accidental. It's the deliberate use of what Carnegie understood as the natural architecture of persuasion. Human attention has a natural rhythm of engagement and release, of tension and resolution, of question and answer. The speakers who command unwavering attention understand this rhythm and work within it rather than against it. John F. Kennedy's famous challenge, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country," works not just because of the idea it expresses, but because of how it leverages this natural rhythm of counterbalance and resolution. This rhythm isn't just about sentence structure or cadence. It's about the emotional journey you create, beginning with common ground before introducing new ideas, building tension before offering release, creating questions in the mind of the listener before delivering answers that satisfy. Carnegie taught that persuasion isn't an event. It's a process that respects the natural way human beings absorb and integrate new information and ideas. Rush this process, and even the best ideas will be rejected. Honor it, and even challenging concepts will find their home. The power of vulnerable authority. Here lies perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of Carnegie's approach to communication. The paradoxical power of vulnerable authority. The speakers who cannot be ignored have mastered this delicate balance. They speak with unquestionable conviction while remaining genuinely open to correction. They project certainty about their mission while acknowledging the limitations of their knowledge. They lead with confidence while remaining teachable. This is not weakness masquerading as humility. It is the genuine integration of strength and openness that creates a magnetic quality in communication. The leader who can say, "I don't know, but I'll find out," commands more respect than one who pretends to know everything. The expert who can acknowledge the boundaries of their expertise becomes more trustworthy, not less. Carnegie understood what modern psychology has confirmed. Perfection doesn't inspire, it distances. People don't connect with flawless performances. They connect with authentic human beings who have the courage to be both powerful and real. When you speak from this place of vulnerable authority, something remarkable happens. Resistance melts, defenses lower. The listener's mind opens because it no longer needs to protect itself from being dominated or manipulated. You create space for genuine influence by releasing the need to be infallible. The path forward. The ability to speak so others cannot ignore you isn't a gift granted to a chosen few. It's a capacity built through consistent practice, through genuine human connection, through the courage to be both powerful and vulnerable. Carnegie's secret wasn't a technique or tactic. It was the recognition that communication that transforms comes from transformation within the communicator first, from aligning your words with your deepest convictions, from caring more about your listener's growth than your own reputation, from the daily practice of genuine human connection. This path is available to you now, not tomorrow, not when you've achieved some arbitrary level of success or status. Now. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice presence before presentation. Every interaction is a chance to earn the right to be heard through genuine interest in others. Every word you speak can carry the emotional current that makes ideas unforgettable. The world is not changed by those who speak the most words, but by those who speak the words that cannot be ignored. Words that transfer not just information, but conviction. Words that create not just understanding, but transformation. This is your inheritance. This is your birthright. This is your responsibility. Speak not to impress, but to impact. Not to be admired, but to create movement. Not to be remembered, but to be impossible to forget. The secret that Carnegie protected through. Simplicity is now yours. The question is not whether you have something worth saying. It's whether you have the courage to become someone worth listening to. Your voice matters. Your message matters. But only when you speak from that place of complete alignment, where your words, your emotions, and your actions become a single unified force. Will you truly speak in a way they cannot ignore? This is not the end of a lesson. It's the beginning of a practice. A daily commitment to communication that transforms rather than merely informs. A lifelong journey toward becoming the kind of person who speaks words that change lives. The world is listening. What will you say?